Oh. One more big deep breath. Oh. As a congregation here, we're happy to host and we welcome you to this space. We're grateful to be partners with the Rainbow Community Center. In fact, multiple events have happened in this space with the Rainbow Community Center. Just so you all know, if you need a restroom, there are 2 restrooms down this hallway and to the right, and you're welcome to use those. And we've done some partnering with the Rainbow Community Center many and multiple ways over the years. I served on the board for 6 or 7 years, and we also we got a micro grant from the county through Rainbow Community Center to help the empowerment kids that were in Antioch have a safe place to be able to do stuff. And we asked them, what would you like to do with this $1,500 we got from the county that can be a stretch goal for you? And we thought that they would want to just host dances in here and have a lot of fun. And we did do that too, but they wanted to learn how to bake. And so we had our little old ladies teach them how to bake and decorate. And then we taught them how to market and put on a brunch for their parents. And they put on their own brunch, and they, after learning and having activities where they could learn how to use the kitchen, they put on the whole thing. And we're so proud of our partnership with Rainbow and all of the life-saving work that gets done there. And as a congregation every Sunday, when we come together, we love to say, no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. And we're grateful that you're here tonight to be here with us. We do have some other co-sponsoring congregations we want to lift up. Arlington Community Church, UCC in Kensington, Clayton Valley Presbyterian Church, Congregation B'nai Tikva, Reformed Congregation in Walnut Creek, Danville Congregational Church, UCC, East County Shared Ministry, which is these congregations here of Community Presbyterian Church and First Congregational Church. First Congregational Church of Martinez, UCC, First Christian Church in Concord, DOC, Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Concord, Hillcrest UCC in Pleasant Hill, the John Muir Health Chaplains in both the Concord and the Walnut Creek Hospital, and we have Raymond here that's going to be leading one of our litanies as a chaplain at the Walnut Creek John Muir, and we're grateful for you and your LGBTQ plus task force. Lafayette United Methodist, Mount Diablo Unitarian Universalist Church, Arinda Community Church, and their pastors here, Pastor Elizabeth, Peace Lutheran Danville, Shellridge Community Church, American Baptist Church in Walnut Creek, St. Anna's Episcopal, our partners in Antioch, St. Mark's Lutheran in Pleasant Hill, Temple Beth Hillel in Richmond, Temple Isaiah, Lafayette Unity, Walnut Creek United Methodist Church, lots of different congregations, many of whom have been open and affirming or reconciling congregations for years and years. So let's welcome Kiku for his welcome to us tonight as well.
Good evening, all of you here in person and all of you that are joining us virtually. We are very proud to be able to co-sponsor and partner with the Interfaith Council of the county, and very proud to be able to be in person for an event and to be thinking about a very important event like tonight. We know that it's so crucial to be able to honor and recognize all of these very beautiful lives that we're about to discuss and reflect on, and to be able to see the imprint and impact of who they are. And to be able to do that in community is so crucial. So I really want to welcome you this evening, and my hope is that you're able to join us in your heart and in the spaces in which that we've been traveling through this incredible time together, and to know that we're here to embrace one another and to embrace the love of the lives that have been lived. And I'm very proud to be able to have a program tonight together in community. So thank you for supporting not only the Interfaith Council and all the places of worship and all the ways that we've been able to do it over the last 20 plus months, but especially for Rainbow Community Center, as we've also been navigating this incredible time to be able to provide services to our community. And that has been in the form of our Houseless Transitional Youth Program, which you can imagine has a really incredible impact during this time with a lot of our young people in community that have been pushed out of homes for so many reasons of not being able to express who they are. and to be able to be embraced in community. We also have a food pantry program that we've had to pivot to being able to have deliveries to folks' homes. A lot of our immunocompromised community members and a lot of our elder adults in community who, as you can imagine, have been sheltered in a whole other way during this time. We have mental health services that have been pivoted to telehealth, and a lot of our clinicians have been overwhelmed with the increase for a lot of us in community as queer folks, being able to seek being affirmed. We also have a youth program that has been in virtual spaces for the most part, and we have a very robust training program and education program that has been able to reach through the screens, through the country, through the state, and internationally to help elevate education around sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. Our center is incredible in the time that it's been around for 26 years, and to be able to navigate through this time has been completely because of community and all of you in this room right now and folks on screen. So I just want to share my deep gratitude for the continued support of Rainbow Community Center and all of our faith communities in this time. So hopefully you have a program this evening. You'll know the flow of events. And my hope is that we know that we have expressions behind these incredible masks that we are wearing, and I can feel them tonight. And we know that the folks that we're about to honor are going to feel that too. So thank you again, and we're going to go ahead and move forward with a land acknowledgement.
One of the things we do here in this congregation is we've been decolonizing our faith for the last few years, is a land and labor acknowledgement. As we acknowledge the lands on which we work, serve, and play upon, let us remember the first inhabitants of these lands. We acknowledge that Contra Costa County is also the ancestral homes of the Bay Miwok, Ohlone, and Tachiyokoots people, with each group having their own relationship with the highest peak that the colonizers called Mount D. We acknowledge the wisdom held by these human ancestors in their relationship to this land, and we seek to learn from their long stewardship. This land was forcibly taken from indigenous peoples, and the violence that occurred then and continues now is a source of grief and shame. Acknowledging this past, we also want to work towards racial justice now and for the future in the way that we as people of faith live on this land, which includes revisioning the way we humans see our place in the world, how we interact with each other, as well as other species. We must also acknowledge that this country was built on the free enslaved labor of Black people, and that labor was violently enforced for hundreds of years. Let's honor the legacy of the African diaspora and Black life, knowledge, and skills stolen due to white supremacy. As Californians, we must also remember our history of welcoming Chinese labor when we wanted low-wage workers to build the railroad, but our state and federal government turned our back on them with the Chinese Exclusion Act when the railroads were completed. Let us also remember that a lot of the folks affected by the Japanese internment were from this part of California as well. With this acknowledgement, we recognize a duty to give honor through our work and continue to stand up for racial and social justice every day. Let us remember our purpose as people of faith and good conscience, whatever life philosophy we live by, as we organize against the forces of all sources of supremacy in allying ourselves, body, mind, and soul, with the people of color-led organizations that will lead us all into the future we imagine for ourselves and generations to come. Our opening chant will be gathered here by Phil Porter, and we invite you to join us as we learn this. And if there's another drum over here, if anyone feels so inclined. Feel that beat in your own heartbeat. Gathered here in the mystery of this hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near 3 more times. Gathered Gathered here in the mystery of this hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of this hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near one more time. Gathered here in the mystery of this hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power. Spirit, draw near. Divine, draw near. Divine, draw near. Universe, draw near. Universe, draw near. Cristina.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. I've been asked to talk about one of our trans sisters that passed this year.
Cristina, you can take your mask off if you want.
Thanks. Sorry about that. I've been asked to talk about one of our trans sisters that passed this year in May 15, 2021. And that would be Felicia Elizondo. And I was going to say Felicia Elizondo, but she says it Elizondo. So okay, so I'd like to take a little time to honor one of our transgender sisters that passed this year, Felicia Flames Elizondo, July 23, 1946 to May 15, 2021, transgender woman of color. A screaming queen, a pioneer, a legend, an icon, a diva, a 27-year survivor, a Vietnam vet. These are Felicia Elizondo's own words. I'd like to add activist to that list. She was very happy and eager to tell her story to anyone that would listen, and even those that wouldn't. She would say things like, in LGBT, the T is not silent. Felicia was present on the day of Compton's Cafeteria Riot. Compton's Cafeteria Riot. Compton's Cafeteria was a chain of cafeterias owned by Gene Compton in San Francisco from 1940 to 1970. The Tenderloin location of Compton was Taylor and Turk. And I remember that location because I used to go across the street to Aunt Charlie's, which she also used to do drag there. And by the way, I think that's where I met her once. I did meet her several times in the stuff that I was doing as well. She was popular meeting. That was a popular meeting place for transgender people, especially trans women, to congregate publicly in the city. So Felicia wanted to tell her story, educate people. She would say it's really good for her because it's a part of her life. And Felicia has done quite a lot for the community. Let me tell you a little bit of what she has accomplished. She said she wanted to educate people on transgender people, that we are not all these drug addicts or just plain freaks. At the beginning, she started with helping to be an emotional and practical support for the community. which meant making sure that gay men met their doctor's appointments and helped them go to the bathroom, wash themselves, etc. And she wanted to make sure that and help them understand why the gay community would discriminate against transgenders, because we were here to help you. She had made 80 quilts in her lifetime, AIDS quilts. In 1991, she moved to San Francisco. She hooked up with the AIDS Foundation as a volunteer, and AIDS Walk as a volunteer, and the Chant Project as a peer advocate, and events and planning coordinator. She was a greeter for the LGBTQ Center, and then she was a receptionist. She was very involved in the AIDS Walk. She suffered some problems at the center, and she became very depressed and started thinking about suicide. She was going to take her life, but she didn't. And instead, she went to the Veterans Hospital, where because she's a vet, and got some help, some medication. She worked with Open House for the seniors, became very involved in the Trans March. And she would say that the LGBTQ community puts you in groups, and she didn't like that. Felicia had a lot to deal with, as we all do, and was confronted with opposition. I think that the underlying force here for her was resilience. And she herself says, she doesn't need anybody, any man in her life or anybody. It's okay for her if her parents don't love her. And she says all she needs is for her to love herself and for her 2 kids, which were her 2 dogs, to love her, and that's all that mattered. That's resilience. Sad but true, you need resilience. There's stories, sad but true, there's stories out there where people are alone, and you need resilience when you're alone. I would like to acknowledge that Felicia Flames Elizondo was a part of a generation before me, and she did what she needed to do to survive and cultivate love and build other family connections. She passed away this year of May 15. Cause of death is kind of unknown. I looked everywhere. She was 74. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Barbara Peranto. We're not doing that now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So we're going to do that later. So we have a resilience thing coming up. So we have to be resilient and kind of bounce around on this. Okay, so I am Barbara Peranto. I am the Reverend Barbara Peranto. I am the bridge pastor at Arlington Community Church. And I'm glad that everyone is here, and I'm glad the folks at home are here. Thank you for being here. So I am here to introduce to you Transgender Day of Remembrance and kind of what it is. On the night of November 28, 1998, Rita Hester, 2 days before her 35th birthday, Rita Hester, an African-American trans woman, was found in her apartment in the Allston section of Boston. Rita had been stabbed 20 times, not just once or twice, but 20. Somehow she was still alive when the EMTs came to rescue her and transport her to the hospital, but she died at the hospital of cardiac arrest. Rita was described as cheerful, full of energy, and full of life. She was glamorous. She was a sister diva friend with attitude, sassiness, and style. She was described as being smart, bright, and a shining star larger than life. A month before her death, and her murder, say that, in November, in October, a month earlier, Matthew Shepard was found beaten and killed in a remote area in Wyoming. His death would receive worldwide attention, as well it should. But Rita's death mostly went unnoticed. When the Globe and the Herald did their reporting, she was misgendered, her name was in quotes, and the wrong pronouns were used. On November 20th, in a year later, November 20th of 1999, Gwendolyn Ann Smith got a hold of this. She was a computer programmer at AOL over here, I don't know my directions, in San Francisco. And she, along with Penny Ash Matz in Boston, coordinated a live vigil. I think it was the first time something had been done like that online, cross country. It was called back then Remembering Our Dead. At some point, Remembering Our Dead morphed into the Transgender Day of Remembrance. Back in 2015, what's that, 6 years ago, we had a memorial service just like this, where 21 trans people had been murdered that year in the United States, 21. Worldwide, it was estimated that 271 were reported murdered worldwide. 6 years later, in this year, 2021, 46 trans people have been murdered. We have more than doubled in 6 years. 375 have been reported worldwide, knowing that there are areas that do not have a free press, that do not have advocacy groups, that cannot get the information out. And yet we are here too to mourn their lives that we don't know their names yet. They had a life, they had friends, they had laughter, and they had plans, and they had hopes, and they each one had dreams. So we are here tonight to raise awareness of hate crimes against transgender people, non-conforming people, and binary people. We are here tonight to honor and to mourn our siblings, our trans siblings, our non-conforming siblings, and our non-binary siblings. We express love and respect and solidarity in the face of national indifference and hatred. We remember that we want you to remember that we are your siblings. We are your children. We are your parents. We are your friends. We are your lovers. And this night too is a chance for our allies to step forward and stand with us, shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm in this vigil. So thank you for being here. And by the way, Rita Hester's murder was unsolved. It was reopened in 2006 by the Boston police, and still it remains unsolved and cold. Are we doing the names now? Okay, I would like to invite us to begin to remember those people. We each have two cards. Let's say their names. When we're done reading their cards, their names, they have a picture on there. You can see they had a face, they had laughter, they had eyes, they had hopes, they had dreams. So let us begin. I'll begin that process now, and then we'll light a candle, and then do we want each one to come up
Pastor
here?
Barbara, if we can just encourage other folks that want to be at one of the other to line up, the next person can line up at that microphone, and those that aren't going to be on the film can be at this microphone, and that way we can just be closer and take the time
Okay.
to be
Do
somewhat
you want to
close
start lining up now?
well, with our spacing and our masks. Yes.
Sure, sure. Okay, I will begin. The first card that I have is Danny Henson.
Oh, we need to do them in the order I have them on here. I can't just pull them
Here
up.
they are, okay.
So whoever has Tata Liban, please come
Okay.
forward.
Then I will move on. Thank you.
Do we have extra cards? We do. Someone might have left their cards back here. If you did, I'm going to let you do that, but we have additional cards here. If you're willing to take an additional person. Does anyone have Tata? Who has Tata among yours? Can you take an extra one? Thank you. Did we miss Tata? No, here it is, right here. Tata Laban, October 14th, from New York, New York. Tata was an artist and musician. She died by suicide, reportedly after being thrown out of her home by her mother, who did not accept her transition. They transitioned in 2017. They had a great relationship with her father, but not with her mother. Presente. Tiana Davaria. Please come forward, and then next will be Samuel Edmond Domain, Damian Valentin. Whoever has that can come up to the other microphone. You've got that one too. Go ahead. Just the top 2 or 3 things that you want to lift out about each person.
Tiana Deveray Alexander, 28 January 6th, Chicago. First reported violent death of a transgender American in 2021 was that of Tiana Gabria Alexander, 28. She was found shot in the head on a street on the city's south side January 6th and was pronounced dead at the scene. Alexander is being remembered fondly. Beverly Ross, a trans advocate and community sister who grew up with Tiana, said that she was a loving person who everyone loved to be around. And she loved to dance, had a great sense of humor, enjoyed life when she could, and just wanted to be able to vibe and thrive. Do you want me to read the Samuel Edmond Damian Valentin, January 9th, Trujillo Alto, Puerto Rico. Samuel Edmond was found dead on a highway in Trujillo Alto, Puerto Rico, January 9th. A driver had hit what she thought was an object on the road, then stopped and realized she had hit a dead person. Valentin had been shot several times in various parts of his body. He was misgendered in initial reports, and an activist, a local activist, said one of the most serious problems we have with the police and Department of Justice is that they do not identify LGBTIQ plus people in their incident reports. Almost every time an LGBTIQ plus person is murdered, it is the community itself that identifies them. And he urged police to investigate the possibility that Valentin's death was a hate crime.
If you showing on the screen, you can go ahead and be in line for one of the next ones. Please light 2 candles. Thank you.
Bianca Muffin Banks, Is the 30 her age? 30 died on January 17th in Atlanta. I believe that's Georgia. She was fatally shot in her apartment. Police believe her killer was a man named Moses Allen, who then took his own life. Their bodies were discovered by Banks's roommates, with whom she had often lived on the streets. Banks had moved into an apartment just a few weeks before she died. Police said the incident is most likely to remain classified as a murder-suicide. Investigators are not looking for any outstanding people of interest in this case. This was not random and is not a threat to the public, spokesperson Tashina Brown told Project Q Atlanta. Banks was a former foster child who was, quote, just blossoming into herself. Jesse Prats Lopez, founder and co-director of the Trans Housing Coalition, said at a memorial vigil last week, according to the publication. Quote, Muffin hadn't been in the apartment for even a month, and we were helping her get a job. We had actually had the job interview scheduled for her the day after she died, Lopez said, in quote. Banks, who acquired her name due to love of blueberry muffins, hoped to one day compete on RuPaul's Drag Race. Friends said Angel Carmen referred to her as sweet and kind, end quote. Dominic Jackson, age 30, was found dead in her car on the 25th of January in Jackson, Missouri, after her aunt reported she had been missing for 3 days. She had crashed her car into a utility pole after being shot. Jackson, in parentheses, not to be confused with the trans actress of the same name, was well known in her community as the mother of the House of Red and founder of the Laddie Red Incorporated. Quote, Dominic was a mother, a sister, a leader, and a necessity to our community, end quote. Sage Doland Sandrino, Monica Roberts, fellow at the National Black Justice Coalition, said in a press release, quote, although I never met Dominic, I am sure she was exactly who I needed when I was young and transitioning, a light source, an example of who I could only become, proof that there was a future for me. Trans women have fought for everyone throughout history, yet we are still being murdered by the same people who we liberated. We give our lives in ways no one should ever be expected to, only to be met with constant hate, discrimination, violence, and disenfranchisement. Trans women deserve better. There is a war on our lives at hand, and no one is sending soldiers to our aid, end quote. Quote, Dominic's life has been extinguished and her friends are devastated, end quote. Human Rights Campaign State Director Bob Hill told local TV station WLBT, quote, her family are devastated, and so are many of Dominic's friends, our trans Black women who are fearing for their lives, even more so than they were before. But I do hope that this helps trans people see that this is a real problem, end quote. Brandon McLaurin, 25, was arrested in February and is charged with murder. Do I like one of the things? All right. I'll pick that up after.
50 bands, 21 of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, was shot to death on January 28th. 4 days later, police arrested Michael Joshua Brooks, 20, with whom she had been in a relationship and who had threatened her life previously, according to local media.
Can you take your mask off, please? It's hard for us to hear you.
Do you want me to start over? Okay. According to local media, which dead-named bands. He is charged with second-degree murder. The two had a volatile relationship. Baton Rouge Advocate newspaper reports. The paper is not related to this advocate. They had broken up for a time but started dating again, and the police say the shooting occurred during an argument. Band's death is an example of intimate partner violence, which trans people experience at a higher rate than cisgender people. In 2020, 70% of trans and gender nonconforming people who died by violence were killed by an acquaintance, friend, family member, or intimate partner. This level of violence is infuriating and heartbreaking, Tori Cooper, Director of Community Engagement, said in a press release. This is an epidemic of violence that must be stopped. We will continue to affirm that Black trans lives matter and say the names of those we have lost, including 50 bands, but we must do more. 50 was killed by someone she knew. If we can't trust the people we know, who can we trust? We need everyone to take action to bring this horrific violence to an end. This one too. Alexis Braxton, also known as Kimmy Icon Braxton, was found dead in a Miami condominium complex February 4th, Miami-Dade. They're investigating her death as a homicide, but have declined to release details on how she died, saying it would compromise the investigation. The family was left with no closure, and they're suffering tremendously because of the death and the manner in which our victim was murdered. Braxton was the daughter of a board member of Hollywood, Florida's LGBTQ Council, the organization posted on Facebook. Police are offering a reward of up to $5,000 for information that leads to an arrest in the case.
China Carrillo, 24, New Wilmington Borough, Pennsylvania, February 18th. Police were called February 18th to a house in New Wilmington Borough where they found a man beating China Carrillo with a blunt object. They ordered the man to cease, but he did not, and an officer shot and killed him at the scene. Carrillo was taken to a hospital in nearby Youngstown, Ohio, where she died of her injuries. Police later identified her attacker as Juan Carter Hernandez, 33, who had been imprisoned in North Carolina. He had shot his wife, Candace Hernandez, to death at their home in the state in July 2011. He claimed he acted in self-defense, but in 2014 he pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 8 to 10 years in prison. He had recently been living in Campbell, Ohio. Carrillo, who was also known as China Carenda, was a certified nursing assistant at the Grove at New Wilmington, a nursing home that was next to the house where she was attacked. She had moved to Pennsylvania from Springdale, Arkansas, in what she had hoped would be a positive change, friends and family said. She had worked at a hospital and nursing home in Arkansas. She would have turned 25 March 3rd. Quote, "I'm going to be celebrating a birthday with an angel in heaven," said her mother, Lilia Correa.
Jeffrey J.J. Bright, 16 years old. And Jasmine Kennedy, 22 years old. February 22nd, date of death for both, in Ambridge, Pennsylvania. Jeffrey J.J. Bright, a 16-year-old trans boy, and his non-binary sibling, 22-year-old Jasmine Kennedy, were shot in the head at their home in Ambridge. The two young people's mother, Cristina Ann Bright, was arrested and charged with 2 counts of criminal homicide. Police said she called 911 and said she had killed her children. And when they arrived, she was covered in blood. At least one of the children begged not to shoot. The criminal complaint against her states, in September, Cristina Bright entered a plea of not guilty in Beaver County Court. Prosecutors said if she is tried and found guilty, they will seek the death penalty. Although Pennsylvania has had a moratorium on execution since 2015, her attorneys are scheduled to meet with prosecutors in November, and their court appearance is scheduled for January. More importantly, friends said the siblings had a complicated relationship with their mother. At a vigil for the victims held on February 23rd, attendees emphasized the need to respect everyone's gender identity and to recognize when a person is in crisis and needs the help of mental health professionals, something that might have prevented the tragedy. J.C. Palmer, founder of the local LGBTQ+ group PRISM, which organized the vigil, said Kennedy and Bright would be amazed to see the outpouring of support at the event attended by more than 100 people. These 2 kids deserve this love and support from their community, she said. Just love your kids. Tomorrow is not promised, and all these kids want is to be loved and accepted for who they are. These tragedies do not need to happen.
Jenna Franks, 34, who was homeless, was found dead in a creek near a bike trail in Jacksonville, North Carolina on February 24th. The autopsy results indicated that she had been stabbed several times. In North Carolina, hate crimes law do not cover crimes motivated by the victim's gender identity. So no arrests have been made so far. Rewards are being offered in information that helps solve the case. Jenna was a beloved member of the LGBTQ+ community, and her absence has been felt by her friends and family members. We do not believe that this was a random act. There's a strong possibility the person who did this continues to work and live in the community. Everyone that I have spoken with, especially at her memorial service, said that she was a delight to be with, and a valuable asset to the LGBT community. She was an amazing person inside and out. I still cannot fathom that this happened. And the writer of this said, being here my whole life, I never thought anything like this could happen. So it's kind of just taken us all aback for just a little bit, but we're still here and we're still pushing forward. Adeline Evans, 24, Port Arthur, Texas, was found dead in a canal in Port Arthur, Texas in March. Police announced in July they believe her death was a homicide. Port Arthur police initially investigated, but now police in nearby Beaumont have taken over the case due to the evidence that she was killed in Beaumont and then taken to the canal. They have not commented on how she was killed. The mother said, "My child was loving. My child was very happy. My child lived her truth every day." Evans had been harassed for being transgender and was even shot when walking with a group of friends in 2017. The mother hopes to start a support group called Adeline's Angels for parents who have lost children to violence.
Diamond Kyrie Sanders, 23, March 3rd, Cincinnati. Diamond Kyrie Sanders, 23, was shot to death during a robbery in Cincinnati on March 3rd. Sanders was found about 4 a.m. that day in the parking lot of an apartment building in Cincinnati's Clifton neighborhood, known for its historic homes and popular restaurants and bars. She was taken to a nearby hospital where she died shortly thereafter. Sanders' family and friends remembered her fondly. Diamond was a ball of energy as a child, and even up to her time of death, reads an obituary posted on the Preston Charles Funeral Home's website. She valued her family and enjoyed spending time with them. As a child, she would say, "I love my whole family." At the last family Thanksgiving dinner, Diamond let her family know she was thankful that they accepted her for who she was, including her trans identity. She loved traveling and fashion. The obituary notes, adding, "Diamond's unique style, charm, and personality will be greatly missed." Rayana Pardo, 26, March 17th, Los Angeles. Rayana Pardo, 26, was killed when struck by a car on east side of Los Angeles on March 17th. Security video shows her being followed by a group of people down Eastern Avenue, and her family wants police to determine if she ran into the street to get away from her harassers, or even maybe they pushed her. She often faced such mistreatment, family members said. The motorist has been charged with driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs. The Trans Latina Coalition, along with Pardo's friends and relatives, held a candlelight vigil Saturday to honor her life and memory. Ariana was such a beautiful young person who just wanted to live her life and be herself. Bambi Salcedo, president of the Trans Latino Latina Coalition, said at the event, "I can't even sleep," said Mana Capaldo, Ariana's mother. "Every time I close my eyes, I just picture her getting hit by a car, so I stay awake." Seeing the turnout of people to memorialize Ariana did provide some comfort, said Adriana Rangel, her sister. "It brings peace of mind," Rangel said. "Like, you know what, there's people out there who do care, and that's what my sister needed help with." "Everybody should just love everybody," said Armando Rangel Jr., Ariana's brother. "At the end of the day, that's all we have is one another."
Jada Peterson, age 29, was shot to death April 4th in a room at the Quality Inn on the west side of Charlotte, North Carolina. Several days later, Charlotte Mecklenburg County Police arrested Dontarius Long and Joel Brewer in the connection with the deaths of Peterson and another local trans woman, Remy Fennel. Also at the hotel, both men are charged with murder and other offenses, including conspiracy to commit robbery with a dangerous weapon. The FBI, which helped local authorities in the investigation, is looking into hate crime charges. There is evidence that the two suspects went to and left the hotel together, although it is unclear how they are connected to the women. Peterson was memorialized at a vigil in Charlotte Park, April 9th. "That was my best friend and the first person I could ever talk to," Twanda Barnett, who had known Peterson since childhood, said at the vigil. "I just don't know how to get it together. I just can't believe something like this happened to my friend. She didn't deserve that." Peterson, Barnett recalled, was always smiling and making jokes. "People just find it easier to kill us because socially we're at the bottom of the totem pole," said Brittany Battle, another friend of Peterson's. No matter what her gender was, a human life was taken away. She has a family and friends and people who love her. Peterson's mother, Mary, said simply, "My heart is breaking." Dominique Lucius, 26, was shot to death April 8th in Springfield, Missouri. Charles Nelson, 28, was arrested the same day, and he is charged with second-degree murder and armed criminal action. Lucius was killed in an apartment where she had spent the night. An occupant of the unit, identified only as SD, told Springfield police. The police said that after Lucius woke him up Thursday morning to tell him she needed to freshen up to prepare for a visitor, he went back to sleep but was awakened again by gunshots. He saw her lying on the couch and a man standing over her, and then the man went out to his car and drove away. SD took photos of the car. A neighbor identified in police reports as JT said he also heard the gunshots and saw the man drive away. Police arrested Nelson that evening. They said he had sent text messages of sexual nature to her after meeting her online. He is being held without bond in the Greene County Jail. The local community is mourning her. Trans women, particularly trans women of color, are disproportionately victims of violent crime, said the Facebook post from the Glow Center, a Springfield LGBTQ community center. This murder and other senseless slaying of trans folks must be contextualized within the anti-trans rhetoric and actions taken by too many. It is 2021 and we must understand that trans rights are human rights. Rest in peace, Dominique. Sierra Williams, Lucius's cousin, told Springfield's KYTV, "It took a while for the family to adapt to this transition, but of course they did." Williams described her cousin as strong, brave, and big-hearted. "She loved herself how she was. and that's what made everybody adore her. If she had her red lipstick and her red nails, she didn't care what you had to say about her, and I loved that very much about her.
Remy Fennel, 28 years old, was found fatally shot on April 15th at the Sleep Inn in Charlotte, North Carolina. Shortly afterward, Charlotte Mecklenburg County Police arrested Dontarius Long, 21 years old, and Joel Brewer, 33 years old, in connection with Fennel's death and that of another Charlotte trans woman that you just learned about, Jada Peterson, also in a hotel. Both men are charged with murder and other offenses, including conspiracy to commit robbery with a dangerous weapon. The FBI, which helped local authorities in the investigation, is looking into hate crime charges. There is evidence that the two suspects went to and left the hotels together, although it's unclear how they were connected to the women. Fennel, who was originally from Hampton, Virginia, had hoped to open a hair salon. She was a beautiful soul and very talented with hair, Shanta Jones, Fennel's aunt, said at the memorial vigil in Hampton, according to TV station WVEC. Fennel's sisters plan to honor her by making the salon a reality. Jones advised, for every family out there, just love, no matter what your preference is, love each other. Tiara Banks, 24 years old, was shot to death in Chicago on April 24th. Banks was sitting alone in her car that night in the West Pullman neighborhood on the city's far south side when someone shot her several times, according to the Human Rights Campaign. Local TV station WGN reported on the crime, but did not give Banks' name. She was pronounced dead on the scene. Chicago police are investigating whether Banks' gender identity was a factor in her death. WGN reports another fatal shooting had occurred about a half an hour earlier, less than a mile away from where Banks was killed. Howard Brown Heath, which serves as largely LGBTQ+ clientele, noted Banks's death and identified her in a Friday Facebook post. The group also called out anti-trans violence in general. We are experiencing an epidemic of anti-trans violence, especially against Black transgender women. That has been a crisis at levels for far too long in this country, Howard Brown officials wrote. We are seeing this epidemic of transgender hate reflected in the surge of anti-trans legislation introduced in states across this country. And we are feeling the effects of anti-trans hate in the loss of yet another member of the transgender community here in Chicago.
Jahaira, excuse me, Jahaira de Alto Valenciaga, 42 years of age, an activist and a legend in the Boston ballroom scene. was stabbed to death April 23 in her home in the city's Dorchester neighborhood. A house guest, Fatima Yassin, 28, was also killed in the attack. Yassin's husband, Marcus Chavez, 34, has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. He said their 2 children, aged 7 and 8, were also staying in D'Alto's home. She had offered a safe space for them to get out of a bad situation. Nolan Tessis, a friend of D'Alto's, told Boston broadcasters WGBH, police have not stated a motive for the crime, but have said Chavez had a history of mental illness. He is being held without bail. D'Alto was known as a community advocate, anti-domestic violence activist, mother figure, and a local ballroom drag scene icon. The station reports Jahida was a legend for the trans community. Tessa said that she was a mother to so many that didn't have parents. I think that she took the most pride in her role as a grandmother and a mother, a chosen family for many individuals in the LGBT community. D'Alto worked for the Elizabeth Freeman Center, which assists survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. We remember Jahida as a colleague, activist, and survivor who touched the lives of everyone around her with her passion, drive, humanity, humor, and fierce vision. Center officials tweeted, her impact on this community was profound and her presence will be missed by many. She was famous in Boston's ballroom scene as a member of the House of Balenciaga. The House of Balenciaga regretfully acknowledges the death/murder of our own Jahida M. D'Alto, a community advocate and friend to many. Harold Balenciaga wrote on Facebook, let us not forget her ongoing work against domestic abuse and continue to uplift her name and ensure her memory lives on in this ironic twist of fate. Natalia Smoot, a 24-year-old transgender woman and beloved drag entertainer in Northern California, was stabbed to death on April 23, and a man who was in a relationship with her has been charged with murder. Smoot, also known as Natalia Smoot Lopez, was stabbed multiple times at a home in Milpitas, California. The man who was charged with killing her, Elijah Cruz Segura, 22, of nearby Union City, led police to her and was arrested at the scene. The gravely wounded Smoot was taken to a hospital where she died. Cruz is charged with murder plus a weapons enhancement for the use of a knife. He and Smoot had been dating for several months. Smoot was a popular drag artist who performed frequently in San Jose and throughout the Bay Area. More than 100 people attended a vigil to honor her at San Jose City Hall. We lost a jewel in our community, said Nathan Swoboda, president of the Project More Foundation, a local LGBTQ+ organization. He described Smoot as captivating. Many at the vigil spoke about the epidemic of violence against trans Americans, especially Black and Latinx women. Smoot was Afro-Puerto Rican. She was willing to speak about her life on stage, noted Sarah Fernando, who met Smoot through Pride events. Natalia is so brave, so courageous for living in her authenticity, Fernando said. How is it possible that someone as brave and courageous as her, how do we not protect that?
Iris Santos, 22, was shot to death while sitting at a picnic table outside a Chick-fil-A restaurant in Houston the evening of April 23rd. Someone just walked up to her and started shooting, according to local TV station KTRK. The attack was caught on surveillance video, and the police have asked for help in identifying the suspect, who was seen fleeing into a neighboring apartment complex. Santos' family did not learn of her death for several days, having become concerned after not hearing from her. She was a beautiful soul, her mother, Maria Carreon, told KTRK. She was a wonderful person. She was always trying to help people, and even when she doesn't have nothing, she always gives. Months later, no arrest has been made, but Santos' loved ones are resolved to see justice done. We're going to find this person. They're not going to get away with this, Santos's middle school teacher, Crystal Toussaint, said at a memorial service in May. She was determined. She knew what she wanted in life, and she was not ashamed of who she was.
Tiffany Thomas, 38, April 24th, Dallas. Tiffany Thomas was shot and killed at a car wash in Dallas on April 24th. She was dead named in some local reports, and her family said she was not transgender, although she appears to have been gender nonconforming at the very least. Quote, Tiffany's exact identity may never be known, Pittsburgh Lesbian Correspondence reports. Quote, the trans community welcomes and affirms her under the trans umbrella, acknowledging her death. There's no shame for someone who happened to be assigned male at birth to be wearing women's clothing at a car wash. It certainly doesn't mean she deserved to die. Acceding to the family's erasure of Tiffany is not only cowardly, but a grave disservice to other trans women in Dallas. It's a shameful way to behave.
Carrie Washington, age 49, of Clearwater, Florida, was found dead May 1st in back of her apartment building, having died of head trauma. Her domestic partner, Arthur Benjamin Jr., also known as Hadika Shabazz, has been arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He had stuck her head against a light pole, according to police records, which also say he confessed to killing Washington. A relative of Washington's said the relationship had often been violent. Little information has surfaced about Washington's life, but friends have paid tribute to her on social media. Several have said she went by the nickname Bobo. Rest easy, Carrie Washington, AKA Bobo, we love you, read one Facebook post. Bobo is the real deal, Slay Queen, said another.
My apologies. I don't do well with public speaking, and I'm going to do the best I can by honoring these people, but I'm not going to be able to read today because I just can't do it. So I'm going to just read their names and honor them. Thomas Harden, May 2nd, York, South Carolina. Sophie Vasquez, 36, May 4th, Brookhaven, Georgia. Brianna Ulmer, 25, September 17th, Chicago.
I have Danny Henson. Is that the next one? Where? Am I up? Okay. Danny Henson, age 31. She died May 4th in Baltimore, Maryland. Danny Henson, 31, went by Prince Daniel, that's Pryynce, was fatally shot in her home in Baltimore, May 4th. A vigil for Hanson was held shortly after her death. I'm still emotional, but I'm trying to hold it together, Brother Michael Hanson said at the event. Friend Ashley Yvonne recalled Danny Henson as just the embodiment of love, adding, "We need to stop having all these Black men, Black women, Black trans people dying and no justice being found." Kadeem Green and Daquan Sawyer, both 23-year-old Baltimore residents, were arrested in late May and charged with first-degree murder. In October, both rejected plea deals that would give them life sentences, but with the possibility of parole. They are scheduled to be tried together in April. Yeah.
All right, Whispering Wind Bear Spirit, a 41-year-old non-binary Indigenous person, was shot to death during an attempted robbery in York, Pennsylvania, May 3rd. The evening of May 3rd, several men entered a home where Bear Spirit was staying with friends. Police said the men were trying to recover a pound of marijuana supposedly taken from them by another resident of the home. Bear Spirit was once shot in the torso while trying to stop the robbery as a male resident of the house was being assaulted. Bear Spirit was taken to a nearby hospital for emergency surgery, but died during the operation early in the mornings of May 4th. Brothers Ryan Craig Strada, age 20, and Nicholas Samuel Strada, age 17, are charged with criminal homicide, robbery, conspiracy, and burglary in the case. 4 other men face charges of robbery, burglary, and conspiracy. Oscar David Cook, 19, Michael Page Stewart, 22, Jaden Tyler Landis, 18, and Philip Cornelius Sullivan, 18. Bear Spirit was Shawnee by birth and Potawatomi by relations, according to their social media postings. Friends have shared memories. I loved her very much and will be receiving her ashes. Tammy Johnson posted on Facebook. I've picked out a beautiful Native American urn with a white bear spirit on it. I will be creating a memorial place for her at our cabin, appropriately named the Bear House. She will finally have a permanent and peaceful home with us.
Okay. Serenity Hollis, age 24, May 8th, in Albany, Georgia. Serenity Hollis is 24, was shot to death in Albany, Georgia, May 8th. She was shot once in the back early in the morning while walking down the street in Albany. According to local media, which misgendered and dead-named her, as have police and prosecutors, the Albany Police Department released video on Facebook showing someone approaching her from behind, shooting her and then fleeing. Authorities suspect that her death was a hate crime. I cannot go into the specifics of everything about what happened, but it was pretty apparent that that was probably a motivation for the death. Dougherty County District Attorney Greg Edwards told TV station WALB while still misgendering Hollis. Shannon Osbury, one of Hollis's sisters, told another station, WFXL, that she believed Hollis's death was either a hate crime or an act of revenge for some reason. Without identifying Hollis as trans, she said someone may have been offended by the way her sibling carried herself. Another sister, Sarah Osbury, told WXFL, Hollis had been attacked before, having been stabbed multiple times at an Albany nightclub, the House of Jazz, about 2.5 years ago. Hollis's mother, Robin Osbury, also spoke to the station saying, the person that's responsible has no idea what they took from us. I absolutely want to see that justice is served.
Poe Dalwin Black, a 21-year-old transgender man, was stabbed to death in California, May 11th. Poe was indigenous, a member of the Wyandotte Nation, Two-Spirit, and neurodivergent. According to friends, Black's body was found May 11th in the Coachella Canal near Slab City, which is an unincorporated community near Nyland, in the desert close to California's border with Mexico. Poe, who went by the nickname Legion in the area, arrived in Slab City in December or January from Nashville. Poe went to an arts-based high school and was a very talented visual artist. He loved to paint and draw, and he also liked restoring things that he found at thrift stores. Poe had a history of activism. He was a strong activist. He was very involved in multiple Black Lives Matter protests and shed blood, sweat, and tears for the cause. He was also very involved in LGBTQ activism. When he began staying out in the slabs, he had the goal of trying to help increase access to resources and supplies for trans people living in the slabs.
Oliver Ollie Taylor, a transgender teenager in Oregon, has died after being kidnapped and shot, and the suspect is now charged with murder. Oliver Ollie Taylor, a 17-year-old trans boy, was abducted May 12th in the town of Garbus, Oregon. Taylor was taken to the Children's Hospital in Portland, where he died last Wednesday. Taylor was involved in several activities at the Garland High School, including the track team, Future Farmers of America. His family remembered him on social media as an amazing child with a quirky sense of humor who impacted so many people. Kenneth William Payton III was charged Thursday with murder. the Marion County District Attorney Office announced is one of the 9 charges against him, including 5 counts of attempted murder. Eric Reed, 22, was shot in the abdomen while trying to prevent the abduction, and he is now recovering.
Tiara Marie Lewis was shot to death in Cleveland on June 12th. Lewis had been experiencing homelessness and had received assistance from the LGBT Community Center of Greater Cleveland. She had moved to Cleveland last year from Columbus and was trying to, quote, break away from sex work and to recover from addiction. She had stayed in various shelters but experienced conflicts and blatant transphobia in at least one, with a security guard using the T word and referring to her with male pronouns. Each time, says a friend remembering her, each time she was dismissed from a shelter, she was resilient. I just really respected her for the fact that she walked through so much, and she still shined such a light. She only gave kindness.
E.J. Borkin, 23, was shot June 14 in Lynchburg, Virginia. E.J. was also known as Nova Watson. Borkin was 23, was shot June 14th. He was found in the parking lot of a Family Dollar store around 6 p.m. that day. He was taken to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead by a local newspaper, the News and Advance reports. Police are investigating Borkin's death as a homicide, and they are still searching for the suspect. They said they do not believe the shooting was a hate crime and think that it may have been related to a domestic dispute. A child was at the scene and was not harmed. Tori Chippe, a longtime friend of Borkin, told the paper that he was loved and liked by everyone. He was one of those people that was just like good vibes and great energy. Borkin's mother, LaToya Watson, has been leading weekly walks while displaying photos of Borkin in hopes of finding someone with information that would lead to an arrest in his case.
Taya Ashton, age 20, July 17th, Suitland, Maryland. Taya Ashton was shot to death on July 17th in her apartment in Suitland, Maryland, a suburb of Washington, D.C., Prince George County. Police found Ashton shortly before 10 p.m. The Washington Blade reports she had suffered a single gunshot wound and was pronounced dead at the scene. She was 20 years old. D.C. trans advocate Erlene Budd released a statement about Ashton's death, saying, "Today is a somber and sad day for the transgender community, as we remember yet another life so precious taken away." She mentioned the fatal shootings of 2 other trans women in Prince George County, Ashanti Carmon and Zoe Spears, both in 2019. Gerardo Thomas, 34 of Baltimore, was charged with first-degree murder in Spears' death and awaits trial, while no arrest has been made in Cameron's death. Transgender individuals are experiencing violence locally and around the country almost every day, Budd said in her statement. DC and PG County are only separated by a line, and we must come together as one community to address this violence. There should be no rest in the LGBTQ community when something as tragic as this happens. Our prayers go out to the family of Tiana. More than 200 people attended a vigil in Ashton's memory. 2 days after Ashton's death, an arrest was made. Deallan Devonte Price, 27, of District Heights, Maryland, is charged with first-degree and second-degree murder, among other crimes. He had been arrested by Arlington County, Virginia police on unrelated robbery charge as he was trying to escape through a train tunnel. Price had been in a sexual relationship with Ashton, according to charging documents. Shaya Vanderpump, 23, July 30th, Trenton, New Jersey. Shaya. Shaya Vanderpump, a 23-year-old activist in New Jersey, was shot to death July 30th in the capital city of Trenton. At 4:40 a.m., police responded to a report of a shooting at a residence. The Trentonian reports they found Vanderpump, who had been shot in the face. She was taken to a hospital where she was pronounced dead shortly afterwards. The following night, police arrested Daniel L. Smith, 36, during a traffic stop. He is now charged with murder and several weapons violations. Smith was the person who reported Vanderpump's shooting to police, according to an affidavit obtained by the Trinitonian. He said someone had roused him out of bed and there had been a shooting at the house. Witnesses placed him at the house, and security video showed him running through the parking lot at a YMCA and washing his hands in a puddle. Police and prosecutors have not stated a motive for the crime, but they are investigating whether it was bias related. She may have been killed while trying to protect another person, notes a crowdfunding page, where money is being raised to cover her burial expenses. Vanderpump was renowned as a fierce LGBTQ advocate in Trenton and across New Jersey, says a Facebook post from the Garden State Equality, an LGBTQ plus rights group. She's the 32nd trans non-binary or gender non-conforming person known to have died by violence in the US this year. 2021 is on track to surpass 2020's record of 44 such deaths. The loss of Shaya Vanderpump is devastating, said a statement from Tori Cooper, a director of community engagement for the human rights campaign Transgender Justice Initiative. Shaya was a well-known LGBTQ advocate in New Jersey, and her loss will be felt by her friends, family, and local community, as well as the wider LGBTQ community. Her life should never have been taken. Too many transgender and gender non-conforming lives have already been lost. We need everyone in every state, city, and community to help bring an end to the senseless violence and stigma that so often impacts Black trans women.
Miss Coco, 44, August 7th, Dallas. A woman known as Miss Coco was shot to death on August 7th at a homeless encampment in downtown Dallas. The organization New Trans Movement noted in a Facebook post, described her as a well-known small girl with a big bubbly personality who was a happy person and proud to be living her truth. Family and friends have given her full name as Coco Chanel Wortham. She was originally from Kansas City. Diamond Rock, a friend who traveled from Kansas to Dallas for a memorial service, described Coco as a giving and kind person who never said no to anyone. And she was a master cosmetologist. The Dallas Police Homicide Unit is investigating her death as a hate crime unless evidence to the contrary emerges.
Pooh Johnson was shot to death in Shreveport, Louisiana on August 23rd. She worked as a makeup artist under the name Titanizer Moa, according to her social media pages. Quote, "It is heartbreaking to witness another Black trans woman stolen from us by transphobia and gun violence," said a statement from Tori Cooper, Director of Community Engagement for the Human Rights Campaign's Transgender Justice Initiative. Quote, "We are quickly approaching last year's record total of fatalities among transgender and gender nonconforming people. Johnson's tragic death highlights yet again the need for attention and resources to combat this epidemic of violence." The National Black Justice Coalition also issued a statement. Quote, "My heart breaks hearing the news about Pooh Johnson," said Victoria Kirkby York, Deputy Executive Director. "This epidemic of violence continues to take life after life, and each senseless loss is devastating. The trans and non-binary community needs support in this moment, and they need protection. Lawmakers must introduce and pass legislation that will prioritize the safety of trans and gender non-conforming people."
Zoella or Zoella Martinez, 20, August 31st, Seattle. Seattle resident Zoella Martinez was found fatally shot in an alley on September 1st. Martinez, 20, had gone the night before to meet Jakari Rashad Hardy in an attempt to recover the $1,100 she believed had fraudulently withdrawn from her bank account, the Seattle Times reports. She had arranged for a friend to stay nearby when she met Hardy in a parking lot. When the friend arrived, she saw Martinez sitting in a car with another person at the wheel. The driver sped off, and when Martinez didn't return to the lot to get her own car, the friend called the Kings County Sheriff's Office to report Martinez missing. The morning of September 1st, Seattle City Police found Martinez's body in an alley next to a fire station with 5 gunshot wounds and burns consistent with being shot at close range. According to the Pittsburgh Lesbian Correspondence, Zoe's social media feeds are filled with joy, curiosity, and generosity. Her birthday this past spring was tied to a fundraiser. She repeatedly encouraged her mother in her struggle with COVID-19. Her death is felt so deeply by her family and friends. It is just heartbreaking. They loved her so much. It was her family that released information that she was a young trans woman.
Desea Monet was shot to death September 6th at a motel in Dolton, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. Latrina Branks, her mother, said she was at the motel with a couple of women friends, but was tired and decided to stay in the room while others went out. When they returned, she was dead. Banks believes her daughter fought the assailant. At the hotel room door, you can tell the struggle was at the door and not inside the room. There's blood, like a trail of blood, at the entrance, right where the hallway area is. Banks said Desea, who transitioned upon leaving high school, was happy, outgoing, and well-loved. She loved to dress, she loved to party, she loved to cook, she loved to do her hair, she loved to take care of people, she said. She's been like that ever since she was little. Banks later spoke to the Block Club Chicago about her daughter. She was always so caring and giving, even though she didn't have much of her own, Banks said. I used to have to tell her all the time when she was little that she can't keep taking care of everybody, but she just couldn't stop. She used to explain to me that a lot of the trans girls she hung out with didn't have family because their families disowned them, Banks added. So she made sure I fed her friends, and she'd take them in like family.
Right. Kiara Solomon, age 21, was found fatally shot in her car at an apartment complex in Arlington, Texas, September 30th. Solomon, who is also known as Kier Lepre Cartier, was in the driver's seat with the door opened and the engine running when another motorist spotted her, the Dallas-Fort Worth CBS affiliate reports. She was taken to the emergency room of a local hospital where she was pronounced dead. Solomon had no known connection to the Madrid apartments, the complex where she was found. She lived with her grandmother in Dallas, and she sometimes visited friends at a different complex in Arlington. She was between jobs and looking for employment, friends and family told the station. Police are still searching for a suspect, and they said they don't believe the perpetrator was motivated by Solomon's gender identity. Friends and relatives are remembering her fondly. Right now, I am just trying to understand and figure out why, her mother, Arnitra Robinson, told local TV station KDFW. Kiara was very loved and loved a lot of people. There's no reason for this to have happened. Friend Kenya Cartier added, first time seeing her, I was like, she's so beautiful. She was fresh in her transition. I wanted to be her trans mother. I wanted to teach her. Another friend, identified only as Josh, told KDFW that they had been making dinner together before she went to Arlington. Something in my soul told me something wasn't right, Josh said. Solomon is at least the 5th trans person killed in Texas this year. The state often been the site of fatal violence against the community. Since I moved to Dallas 3 years ago to the date tomorrow, this is the 8th transgender woman of color who has been shot. Naomi Green, a fellow with a Human Rights Campaign Activate program, said in a press release. The 7 who were killed were all Black and Latina survived. I didn't know that when I moved here, I was moving to a place where being trans means being deserving to die, that a trans life was not equivalent to any other life and was less deserving. That is the mentality of many outside of the LGBTQ plus community here, and it has to stop. We need the help of others to stop the senseless violence and killing of trans people in the city. My heart goes out to the lovely trans sister who lost her life at only 21 and all those who loved and knew her.
Mel Groves, 25, died October 11th in Jackson, Mississippi, after having been shot multiple times. Groves drove himself to the Merritt Health Hospital in Jackson and collapsed while getting out of his vehicle. The Jackson Police Department is investigating his death as a homicide and is still searching for the suspects in trying to determine a motive. Groves was a farmer for the Knights in Orchid Society Garden Program and a plant soil scientist who loved agriculture and animals. Notes a press release from the National Black Justice Coalition. Quote, "The violence this year seems never ending, and I'm devastated each time I hear another trans sibling lost." End quote. Victoria Kirby York, Deputy Executive Director of the NBJC, said in a release, quote, "What is even more heartbreaking is the fact that Mel expressed fear for his life because he was trans living in Jackson. Trans people should not have to fear violence simply because of their identity, but that it is our country's current reality. This has to do with the prevalence of transphobia in our daily lives and the inaction around the epidemic of violence against the trans community. The time for action is now because even more lives are lost." Groves was studying plants and soil science at Alcorn State University in Lawrence, Mississippi. He cared about everything, especially plants. Grove was a brilliant student, Bell said, but had been rejected by his family and sometimes experienced homelessness. Quote, "Imagine how much he could have contributed to our technology, to science, to agriculture if he had been stable and if he actually had a chance," Bell added. "You will never get that opportunity."
Royal Poetical Stars, 20 years old, was shot to death October 2nd inside her Hummer in a residential area of Miami Gardens. Police, whose report misgendered and dead-named her, have released a few details, but her friend, Sandy T. Fox, told the publication she was shot 20 times, including in the face. The crime occurred about 11:30 a.m. 11:30 a.m. Fox says it shows to me a very high level of premeditation and anger. Fox, a family law attorney, was outraged at the dead naming and the misgendering. Stars, who was widowed 2 years ago, was struggling financially. She worked as a masseuse and had recently received a business degree from a vocational school. She was also a singer. She was, quote, "always the life of the party," Fox said. "Whenever we walked on Wilton Drive to the next bar, everyone loved how Poetical was dressed. They would always comment, 'Girl, I love that hair,' or 'Girl, I love those nails.'" Quote, "It has become more acceptable to be transphobic, especially in regard to Black trans women. That's terrifying," says Tori Cooper, Director of Community Engagement for the Human Rights Campaign's Transgender Justice Initiative. Royal Stars was shot in broad daylight in her own car. She changed her name legally, but the police still misgendered her. Too often, transgender people are denied basic human dignity, even in death. Stories like these are an indictment of our society's continued devaluation of Black trans lives. Royal deserved to live and pursue her dreams, but she became yet another victim of the horrific epidemic of violence against trans and non-binary people.
Jesse Hart.
42, October 17th, Banks, Oregon. Jesse Hart, a 42-year-old transgender woman who had experienced poverty and housing insecurity, was found dead in Oregon on October 17th. Authorities suspect foul play, which would make her at least the 43rd trans, non-binary, or gender non-conforming person to die by violence in the U.S. this year. Hart's body was found in a wooded area near Banks, a small town 25 miles of Portland. Willamette Week reports. Detectives think she died about 2 weeks earlier. Hart had been featured in a Willamette Week story in June about Portland residents living in motels as a last resort before homelessness. The paper notes she had been experiencing housing insecurity since her transition in 2016. She said she had lost her construction business and her home and had become estranged from most of her lost family due to the transition. She and her 13-year-old son Caleb had bounced from a women's shelter and a friend's apartment into motels. According to Willamette Week, she also had an adult daughter who lived in another part of Oregon.
Joe Acker, 26, was working as a security guard and was killed when a gunman opened fire at the Boise Town Square Mall in Idaho on October 25th. Her family members say she took actions that undoubtedly saved many lives there. She confronted the shooter on the first floor of the mall near a department store, according to the police. The gunman shot Acker and she died on the scene, and another person in the mall was also killed, and at least 4 other people were injured. Acker's partner and siblings say she died a hero. She ran toward the gunman, hoping to stop him. She was confronting the suspect. She was helping people be safe and get out of the way, and they shot her, Ray Don, Acker's partner of nearly 3 years, told the Idaho Statesman. I was told she was helping people and saving them. I know she would have wanted to make everyone feel safe. She would have been the first one to go down to confront somebody. Confronting someone whom she viewed to be a threat to others or a bully was entirely within her character even prior to enlisting, Tiffany Luna, Acker's older sister, told Colorado Springs TV station KKTV. Acker, who had lived for a time in Colorado Springs, served in the U.S. Army as a forward artillery observer and paratrooper. We have had people messaging us to tell how she helped them, how she saved them, and we are so thankful for the love and support we are receiving, Luna added. Dawn noted that Acker hated bullies more than anything else and added she would see anybody in trouble, no matter how uncomfortable or awkward it would be, she would stop whatever she was doing to make sure that the other person was safe. Acker had a 3-year-old daughter, Everay, and the family has set up a GoFundMe campaign to raise money for Everay's support. However, it is misgendered. Tori Cooper from the Human Rights Campaign's Transgender Justice Initiative said, if we are to draw attention to the frightening rate of anti-trans fatal violence, we also need to draw attention to the dire need for gun control laws in this country that will ultimately not only keep our transgender community safer, but all communities safer.
I saw an article today that pointed out that we've had more death for transgender people this year than almost any other year. This year shattered the record of transgender homicides in a year with 47 to date, most of them Black or Latinx. And I can't decide whether I'm grieving more or I'm angry when I hear all of these deaths. Kiva Scatter, age 34, was found in a field with a gunshot wound. Baton Rouge Police Department is investigating a murder of a Black woman of trans experience that was found dead near Prescott Road in a grassy field. They arrived on the scene to find her dead due to a gunshot wound. Presently, police have no leads and are investigating this murder. Friends, I think these are the 3 most recent ones, and I don't think we have as much information on these as we do some of the others. So if anyone knows anything about this one, about Ricky Altumuro, Centralia, Washington, then let us share. Presente. Jenny De Leon, age 25, November 2nd, Tampa, Florida. Presente. Markeisha Lawrence, age 28, November 4th, Greenville, South Carolina. Presente. And the last one that we know of, Angel Naira, 36 years old, November 11th, in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania. Presente.
I can speak to them.
Would you please?
Ricky Altumuro, aka True Starlet, was a 39-year-old Latina transgender woman who was fatally shot in Centralia, Washington, on the night of October 30th or the morning of October 31st. Altumuro was a popular and well-loved member of the Washington LGBTQ+ community. She performed under the drag name True Starlet and was a former Miss Gay Lewis County. Friends remembered her on social media with one writing that she was an incredible advocate for the queer and trans community for nearly 20 years. Jenny De Leon was a 25-year-old Latina transgender woman who was found dead in Tampa, Florida on November 2nd. De Leon attended PFLAG Tampa meetings and sought their help when she began transitioning. The organization wrote that Jenny was an enigmatic bright soul with enough energy to fill any room. Markeisha Lawrence, a 28-year-old Black trans woman, was very humble, as one friend remembers her, and had a heart of gold. Lawrence's friend said that her favorite thing to do was to cook because she felt it filled the belly and filled the heart. Lawrence was fatally shot in South Carolina on November 4th. Angel Nera, a 36-year-old Black transgender woman, was found fatally shot at her home in Aliquippa, Pennsylvania on November 11th, 9 days ago. Nera was a graduate of Aliquippa High School and Beaver Falls Beauty Academy and worked full-time in home health care. Nera's brother wrote that she was a great person and loved everyone. She had a big heart and would do anything for her family and friends. Something to be said when you don't have enough candles.
Please join me in reciting the words, "We remember them." At the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. At the opening of the flower buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the shining of the sun and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and at its end, we remember them. As long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember them. As long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us, and we remember them.
One of the congregations that's probably done the most in trans welcome is Mount Diablo UU Church in this county. And they've not just done the welcoming and the cultural competency on the inside that all of us need to do, but also they've welcomed a trans immigrant to live on their campus as a guest to help them get started in this country, knowing the risks that trans people take to get across the border or to just survive in this country. And so here's a song as we remember all of those that we've mentioned tonight.
Please join me in singing How Could Anyone? You'll find the words on your screen.
Oh, okay. Okay. Again, my name is Barbara Peranto.
I'm Cristina Zaldana.
And you're going to talk about, what are we talking about?
And you're from?
Oh, I am from Arlington Community Church in Kensington, California.
And I'm from Rainbow Community Center. So on Transgender Day of Remembrance, we usually honor only those who have lost their lives through anti-transgender violence. But I always thought that suicide victims, people who took their lives, were also victims of anti-transgender violence. We're going to talk about something completely opposite of suicide, and that's resilience.
Okay. So we came up with a list of things that we need to know about resilience. So lesson number 1 about resilience is to make a list of all your goals. Write them down. Who is it that you want to be and how do you want to get there? I'm sure your vision is to be the most wonderful, authentic, brave, courageous, lovely, beautiful, handsome, awesome, fabulous, beloved, blessed, sacred, talented, skilled, intelligent, self-aware and caring person you can be. And who wouldn't, right? So how can we get there? What is it that you need to do to be yourself? What's going to be on your list of goals? A new job, more education? Do you need to move? Health care, a roof over your head, hair, wardrobe, makeup, right? So write down all your goals. Because here's the thing, when life goes all kaflooey and we find ourselves all bouncing off the road that we wanted to be on, this list of goals becomes our roadmap back to where we need to be. And so we can find ourselves on the way where we need to be. So as Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, dare to live the life that you have dreamed for yourself. Go forward and make your dreams come true.
Along with that, I think that part of resilience is keeping busy, working on something for yourself or for others, or working on something for yourself and for others. Something you enjoy and that others will enjoy. Also, keeping busy, way to focus your energies, make something beautiful out of your situation. because the world can be a hard place, but you have to make your own beauty.
Uh-oh. Hello?
Thanks, Will. You have to make your own beauty. No one's going to do it for you. You have to make your own beauty. That's what I learned a long time ago, and that's what's kept me going.
Okay, number 2, life, this transition is good. There's going to be loss as you emerge into the most beautiful person that you can be, right? As they emerge, there's going to be loss, and I wish, and that's going to be a given, and I wish someone had told me that in the first place. A lot of things would have been a lot easier going into this. So gone sometimes are the relationships, the friends and the family, the house, the car, the dog and the goldfish. Gone is the income, the health care, and your social support network may just kick you to the curb. So the loss becomes very real. And this is when that roadmap that you just made, this roadmap of goals that y'all wrote down, comes in real handy, because that will be your guide to come back to where you need to be.
These are all points about resilience, which is opposite of suicide. I'd like to speak a little bit about that, as I actually have been already. These points are all points that leads you to the path of resilience. When someone is contemplating taking their life, it can look to others like they're gone over the edge or off the rails. Choosing to do so is actually a conscious decision, and have carefully weighed out all the pros and cons to the point where it seems quite logical, but really it isn't. I would like to ask anyone who is contemplating suicide not to do so.
Indeed. There will be those days you'll find it seems like you're going to be in a box canyon and you can't find your way out. It's deep, it's dark, it's depressing. And oddly enough, depression might be the only connection that you have to some sort of kind of feeling. It's kind of like when your tooth hurts and you kind of wiggle it around and it hurts some more, and oh, that feels so good, and you hurt some more, and that's the way depression is. The more pain, the better. A sobering thought might come to mind in this box canyon you find yourself in, as you might find yourself peering over the edge of that dark abyss. What if I weren't here, you might say? Would anyone notice? Would anyone care? What if I took all these pills? In that moment, think about how much life needs you and how much you need life. Number 3, so this too shall pass. This life, this world needs you. It needs your energy. It needs your love. It needs your light. Just ride this one out. There are 30,000 more tomorrows just waiting for you. So go back to your goals. That's your roadmap, back to who you need to be.
Believing in yourself has nothing to do with gender, but a lot to do with believing in yourself, because that's the way to success in everything you do. You are the best at do the best at what you do, or be the best at what you do. Because ultimately, when we do this, people will not see gender, color, or class. It's true. Be human. To quote a scholar, free your mind from mental slavery.
In spite of all the loss that I had experienced, I had never been happier, because I got to be me. Who doesn't want to be who you are, right? So be your authentic self, because being who you are is a thrill of a lifetime. So be your own very best friend in all of this. Okay, I'm going to go to the God question here. So this one was kind of easy for me, but for a lot of people, it's no matter what you're going through. You don't have to be trans to go through this kind of stuff. Everyone, no matter what you're going through, know the difference between God's love and what other people are telling you about how God hates you, or how God is punishing you, or how God is doing this, that, and the other thing when God isn't doing all that. God's the one leading you through all of this. God loves you. It's not God that hates you. God loves you. And so God is the one getting you over this, getting you through this. So feel that empowerment. You are being empowered in that moment. And don't let anyone squash your dreams. They are your dreams. Don't let anybody take them away from you. Don't let anyone take away anything from you by talking trash to you.
God does love you, and he not only loves you, but you're doing his work just by being yourself, simply by being yourself. The wonderful thing is that we don't have to adhere to any make or model. That is where the beauty lies. It's what makes the world go round. You might not think you have a purpose or whether you're worth anything or have any say, but you do. Everyone does, and we all need you, your heart, your love, your say, your voice, because there's always somebody trying to take away what you got, so you better speak up. Don't let anybody tell you who you are. You tell them who you are.
Another lesson that I learned is that you will discover, and going through all the hardships will forge something inside you, and you will discover an inner strength that you never thought you had. I never saw that one coming. I didn't think I had inner strength. People would say to me, you're courageous, you're brave. And frankly, it didn't seem like it at the time. I was just trying to put one foot in front of the other and then take another day and then put one foot in front of another on that day. Just trying to be me. And people might notice your courageous bravery much sooner than you will. But along the way, that inner strength that you never knew you had will come bubbling out and become very obvious to you. So own your courage. You have it. You got it.
Thanks for letting us talk.
We're not done yet. Okay, one more thing. So the last thing here is, yes, you are your own best friend. And remember that no matter what you're going through, and we need allies, and we need friends to be with us, right? We need people to like us, to be our allies, to stand shoulder to shoulder, to love us, to say, I love you. If one adult says, I love you to a trans child, that significantly saves their life, even just one adult. But there are times when maybe push comes to shove, and you're not in that environment, and that doesn't happen that day. So the number one person you need in your corner all the time is you. You need to be in your own corner, and you need to be your own best friend to get through that day. So this moment, every moment is a learning moment. Allow each moment to be resilient, that resilient moment, that you become your wonderful, authentic, brave, courageous, lovely, beautiful, handsome, awesome, fabulous, beloved, blessed, sacred, talented, skilled, intelligent, self-aware, and caring and resilient self. As once again, Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, to be yourself in a world that is continually trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, everybody, for letting us speak to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for speaking to us, Reverend Barbara and Cristina. We're going to do Passing of the Flames, and I think it's really fitting to be thinking about Felicia Flames Elizondo as we do this. And a couple things to keep us safe in the passing of the flame is that I'm going to initiate, and when I initiate, I'm going to go ahead and come over here to the circle around the altar, a bigger circle that still keeps us space. So some of us might have to come behind it.
If you have the pictures of the people that you spoke their names, you can put them on the altar as well.
So as we form in our beautiful oval that will come together here, I'm going to start to my right. And what we want to make sure is that the person to your right is tipping their candle towards you so that we can stay safe with wax and flames. And then we're going to watch our flame continue across the circle as we encircle our beautiful souls, our 47 souls that we know of, that we spoke to, that we're energizing and encircling them with intention. I encourage you to keep your flame upright if you're lit and allow the person to your right to tip theirs. We're going to invite right now a moment of heart vibration through silence. So we will take in our 47 folks that we were able to speak their names this evening, knowing that they're connecting in this space. I want to encourage you to go ahead, and even folks at home, I'm sure you have lights where you are, and if you'd like to bring forth anything in this time to be able to join this circle and connect on the heart vibrations of the 70. And I say that number because we're really talking about 375 around the world that we know of, the 47 that we spoke of this evening, and the countless that we do not know their names. So let's take this moment right now to bring forth all of that connection. Think of the names that you spoke. And I want to invite you, as you hold your light, I'm going to share some thoughts about what can we do from here? Where do we go with the understanding of what we've lost with life? We know that their lives mattered. they still matter. For those of us that are here in this room right now, we look behind Reverend Barbara and Reverend Will McGarvey, and we see here these flags. And in this space, we see Black Trans Lives Matter. And I'm curious in this space right now, how many of you all are past the age of 35? If you want to raise your light a little higher, if you've made it past the age of 35. And as we look around and we see how many of us, we're fortunate because that's the average age of a Black trans woman. And I say Black trans woman, and we have a flag here, Black Trans Lives Matter. You heard the names, you saw the images. Over 90% of the names we know are Black trans women. How many that we saw that are Latinx? We know that this anti-trans violence must stop. We know that this is structural violence. We know it's direct. We know that we have the power. When we think about call to action, we're called to awareness right now. We're called to awareness of resources that were just shared, of ways in which we can intervene, we can recognize, we can understand when folks are at risk. And a lot of it has to do with education. We need to grow our education around what we don't yet know about what trans lives mean when they're lived in prosperity, in progress. I feel very proud to stand here as a trans man of color, and I'm deeply sorrowed. 47 lives were spoken this evening, and we heard that just 6 years ago, it was less than half. We were looking at 21 lives in 2015. We heard Reverend Barbara share around Rita in 1998, 23 years ago, when these ceremonies started. And we know that someone activated to start that visibility at that time. There was a lack of visibility before that. We need to grow our education around what we don't know about our lives. I want to inspire all of you to think about what are these dominant narratives that exist around who we are as trans folks in community. One of those dominant narratives is that Black trans women are being killed. And it's a true narrative right now. And a lot of people don't know it. We have the power, each one of us, to change this. And it requires challenging and changing not only this dominant narrative, but all the intersections that influence it and inform it. Everything from bullying behavior that starts when we're very young, hate speech, the expectations of coming out, the terms of femininity, the terms of masculinity, how our healthcare systems are stigmatizing for trans folks, how it is just to walk in the door, to consider taking care of yourself, what it means to walk into a public restroom. What does it mean to have a family, to be a parent? I really want to think about how we can envision practices and remembrances that situate our own positions within our structures of power that we're a part of. How they authorize violence, places where we work, how we consume in our culture, what media we take in. You may have heard of a documentary that is on Netflix. It's called The Closer. That is a comedic stand-up piece by Dave Chappelle. I would want to ask you, if you haven't seen it, to watch it and have a conversation after you watch it with yourself, with people you care about. When comedy can hurt and kill, that's exactly what it's doing. It's perpetuating narratives, perpetuating culture of dominant engagement, and who has control, who has more power and more value. And then I want to encourage you to also watch Disclosure with Laverne Cox leading conversations, a trans woman that's Black, who's past the age of 35. And I want you to compare and contrast what messaging is out there and how powerful that messaging is. Our task is to move from sympathy in these moments to responsibility, from complicity to reflexivity, from witnessing to action. It's not enough to simply honor the memory of all these individuals who have passed and their lives were taken. We have to transform the practice of the living, of us. Let's be committed to advancing intersectional approaches to trans politics and continue to highlight the importance of seeing transphobic violence as inherently connected to race. Inherently connected to gender, inherently connected to class. This is illustrated in the disproportionate violence against trans women of color, Black trans women, Latinx trans women. Let's look at how we can transcend just being inclusive and actually look at how we can be more expansive. How do we build spaces that reflect people that are not yet there, because we belong everywhere? One way that that can happen, you'll see on the back table when you entered, and I want to encourage you, I do this where I go, Trans Student Educational Resources, tser.org. You can order these stickers that say, a trans person was here. I recently was in Portland walking with a friend in Oregon, and there was some slanderous vandalism on a roadside, and I happen to have one of these in my wallet. I try to carry as many as I can. I covered it. When I'm in a bathroom and I'm safe, because I'm very privileged to be read as male in a binary, I place these in the bathroom. It's important that we see symbols and validation of who we are and that we're present, even if it's not safe to be seen. It's a simple thing we can do. Other options of things that really can help bring visibility is proactively speaking with someone in your family, in your community, and tell them what this experience was this evening. Share some of the names that you heard, the stories. We have this incredible week coming up, Harvest Week, that symbolizes a lot of history in our country. We usually gather around tables. We're usually breaking bread together in different ways. Tremendous opportunity to connect with people in your family, to help educate. These folks were shot 20 times. These folks were beaten. These folks had their heads taken into hard surfaces because of fear, because of miseducation. Education is a really powerful tool. Share your pronouns. As a cisgender person that is born the sex assigned at birth that you identify as a gender now, share forward your pronouns. Put them in your email signature blocks. Encourage people to ask you why, even though they've known who you are. It's an opportunity, it's an opening to share why it's important to have visibility. Think about the children's books that are out there. Think about the young person who came here and climbed on top of a chair to read about one of our folks tonight. Our young people are who we can be looking to differently now. A lot of us adults need to catch up with our education, and we need to get out of the way. We need to allow space for people to learn, for our young people to lead. I encourage you that if you don't know someone in community that's trans, do some research. Learn about somebody that we know history has not quite put them in the forefront. Learn about Bayard Rustin. And let's also think about learning about people that are still with us. I think a lot about transgender identities. We're in this moment of Trans Day of Visibility. We know we have Trans Day of Remembrance tonight. Trans Day of Visibility is in the spring. We should have moments to honor the folks who are here right now doing the good work. The Miss Major Griffin Gracies, the Janet Mocks, the CC McDonalds, Black trans women that are fighting, putting themselves out in front, who have been doing it for a lifetime. They're still alive, and they're still doing the work. And there are places that we can be supporting with dollars, with visibility, that are here. We're in the Bay Area. The Transgender District in San Francisco that's now been around for a handful of years, founded by Black trans women, supporting an area in the city with knowing that there's trans businesses that can be there, trans people can live in that district. There's community. The Transgender Justice Institute, also in the city. Transgender Student Educational Resources, TSER, the folks who made the stickers, who make posters, who help educate around all things transgender, led by young people. Google's powerful. You can learn a lot just by searching as well. So I just want to encourage you to think about, this is a call to action. Seeking knowledge, honoring the people who are here right now doing the work, and spending the inordinate amount of time that we did this evening. As I've gone from one ceremony to another over the years, how much longer it's getting. We need allyship that moves us from listening to starting to get it, to people really saying it more focused, to talking about it more, to super allies that change laws and policies. This year, 2021, not only is it the most transgender individuals that have been killed, it's the most transgender legislation with bills in 33 states, over 100 this year. We all have voices, we all have the ability. Meeting some of you for the first time in person after being on screens, the folks that are at home right now watching. We can be connected in this time. We can be figuring out how to organize. We can bringing more visibility. We can hire people in our organizations and workplaces that are transgender, that are representing. We will never forget and stop honoring those that we've lost. For those of us that are here right now this evening, let us stand strong in how we're building activism together. Let us create change. Let us celebrate ourselves and our communities. I'm thankful that I'm past the age of 35. I'm thankful for the staff I am so blessed to work with at Rainbow Community Center, by the community that we exist in, by the collaborations and the connections to all communities. Because the visibility alone in one area is not enough. And I feel proud to be able to be here this evening, spending it with all of you, because I know you're going to reverberate this. The family that left, one of the sentiments was, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. Let's make sure that we can sleep a little better as we move forward together and be uncomfortable, intervene, be an incredible bystander that actually starts to get up. We need you. I need you. Black trans women that are not invited to stages to have these conversations, aren't believed, aren't valued. They need you. And I'm just with deep gratitude to all of these faces here. And I want to honor all of those that we don't know. Thank you so much for being visible and helping us be visible. I appreciate that we get to be in community together tonight. When you're ready, as you take your flame and transition it, think of who you spoke about and think about two things that were offered tonight that you're like, I can do that. I can grab a sticker on my way out, or 3 or 10. I can think about the resources for knowing that I'm going to be affirming myself around my life and others' lives that you saw on the screen that are printed on sheets back there. Take things and share them. Talk with somebody. Think about what those things are that you're going to do as you transition your flame.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around to tend these fires. We shall be in this faith.